All right, so get this. We're going deep, like deep into 2024 horror.
Ooh, fun.
But not just any old horror roundup. No way.
Gotta be something special.
We're talking Dreadit, my friend.
The infamous best of list, right?
You got it. Reddit's horror community.
They know their stuff.
Oh, they absolutely do. So if you're looking for, like, the ultimate guide to last year's scares,
Dreadit's the place to be.
they don't just rate movies, though. It gets intense.
Intense. Good or intense?
Oh, both. They dissect these films, debate them. Sometimes it feels like they're ready to throw down over which demon was scary.
A passionate bunch, huh?
That's putting it mildly. It's like a hive mind with a taste for blood, you know?
And everyone knows their opinion can make or break a movie.
Especially for the indie guys.
Hmm.
Okay, enough chit-chat. Let's get to the good stuff.
Hit me with it.
The champion, the top dog, the film that clawed its way to the top of the Dreadit mountain, The Substance.
Oh, yeah, Demi Moore. Heard about this one.
It was everywhere. And the thing is, Dreadit went nuts for the practical effects, which is interesting.
Not your typical CGI fest.
Nope. They were praising how those effects, like, added to the film's satire, you know, like a modern Cronenberg, but even weirder.
Yeah, that's a combo.
I saw people comparing it to The Fly and Titan.
Oh, movies that really get under your skin. Literally.
But here's where it gets juicy. Dreadit is totally divided on whether it's actually a masterpiece or just a really well-made gross-out party. Some are calling it pretentious. Others are saying it's the most disturbing thing they've ever seen.
Classic Dreadit. Gotta love them. So passionate.
Right. It's like there are two camps. The gore hounds who love gore. And then the film buffs looking for some deeper meaning. And the winner is, well, it depends who you ask. Okay, moving on.
Let's hear it.
Runner-up, and this one sparked some serious arguments. Nosferatu.
Oh, interesting. You'd think a classic monster flick would be a shoo-in.
You would, but Nosferatu got some serious side-eye, my friend.
Really?
Some loved the mood, the visuals, but a lot of users called it predictable. Slow, even boring. One comment that really stuck with me, someone compared the acting to a stage play.
Oh, too theatrical, maybe.
Maybe. But for some Dreadit users, it just didn't do it for them. They want raw scares, the kind that punch you in the gut. Nosferatu might have been a little too refined. I don't know.
Too elegant for the bloodthirsty crowd, maybe.
All right, rapid fire round. Oddity.
Hit me.
Low budget indie, but word on the street is there's at least one scene that'll stay with you forever. You know, like that scene.
Oh, you know the scene.
It's going to be that kind of movie.
Pushing buttons.
And they're into it. Big time. There are tons of films on this list praised for their sheer intensity, like Red Rooms.
Haven't heard of that one.
A lot of users thought it deserved way better than its ranking.
A hidden gem, maybe?
Maybe Dreadit's tastes are changing, getting a little more, I don't know, sophisticated.
Intriguing. Maybe they're branching out, appreciating a slow burn as much as the in-your-face stuff.
Okay, let's see. Late Night with the Devil.
Okay, I know that one. It was.
Super divisive. You either loved it or hated it. No in between.
Yeah, lots of heated discussions about that one online.
Right. And then there's Smile, too.
Ooh, a sequel. Those are risky.
But get this. People are saying it's better than the original.
No way, for real. Sequels rarely live up to the hype.
This one did. And speaking of sequels done right, Alien Romulus is high on the list, too.
Whoa, the Alien franchise. Back in action.
Back and better than ever, according to some. They're calling it one of the best Alien films, period.
That's a bold statement. I'll have to check it out.
Okay, here's a head-scratcher. Strange, darling.
What's so strange about it?
Well, beautiful to look at, twisty story, but some people found it straight up boring.
Really? What was Dreadit's take?
Split, as always. Some loved it, others not so much. Too artsy for the blood and guts crowd, maybe?
Could be.
Yeah.
Some horror fans, they just want the visceral stuff. No time for art.
Okay, two more before we move on. Mads.
Mads. Okay, haven't heard of that one.
This one is apparently shockingly good. Like, you watch it and immediately want to tell everyone you know.
Word of mouth is everything in horror. Makes you want to see what the fuss is about.
Right. And finally, we have Longlegs, and of course...
Let me guess. More division.
You know it? Some loved it, others hated it. It's like a litmus test for your horror preferences.
Longlegs. I'll add that to my list.
Good call. All right, we've barely scratched the surface here.
There's just so much more to uncover.
Buckle up because this Dreadit deep dive is just getting started. All right, so we've barely dipped our toes into this Dreadit top 25, and I'm already feeling kind of overwhelmed. It's a lot.
It's a feast.
Yeah.
A buffet of blood and guts and scares.
Right, like drinking from a fire hose, but the fire hose is filled with, I don't know, ectoplasm.
Okay, you lost me with the ectoplasm, but I get it. It's a lot to take in. But that's what makes it so fun, right? Like, we're explorers mapping out the darkest corners of horror cinema.
I like that. A map of mayhem.
Hmm.
So, where do we go next on this blood-soaked map?
Well, let's talk about a movie that really seemed to grab Dreadit by the throat, The First Omen.
Oh, yeah, the prequel.
Prequels are always a gamble, especially when you're messing with a classic like The Omen. But this one really impressed them.
I saw a bunch of comments calling it the best Omen movie, period. Which is wild, right? The original is like horror royalty.
Right. But what's interesting is Dread seems to love the way The First Omen builds suspense. They're all about the atmosphere, the cinematography, that slow burn tension that just gets under your skin.
Speaking of slow burns, there's Heretic. It's a little lower on the list, but there's this hardcore group of users who are obsessed with it, saying it's one of the most disturbing films they've seen, but you got to be patient. It's not about jump scares, it's something else.
It sounds like it's messing with people's heads in a big way, which makes sense given Dreadit's usual preference for, more in-your-face horror.
Hmm.
But maybe that's what makes Heretic stand out. It's like a film that seeps into your brain and just stays there.
Okay, so if Heretic is a slow burn, Terrifier 3 is like a geyser of gore. Art the Clown is back, baby, and he is not messing around.
Oh man, Terrifier. That franchise has become a phenomenon,
Hmm.
and Dreadit is like its biggest cheerleader. They love Art's unique brand of mayhem, the over-the-top violence, the sadism. It's like a throwback to those like super extreme 80s slashers, but cranked up to 11.
One comment I saw said that Terrifier 3 is so violent, it's practically a cartoon. And coming from Dreadit, that's high praise.
Yeah, those folks have seen it all, so when they say something is extreme, it's got to be something special.
Okay, now for a complete 180. I saw the TV glow. There's not a lot of info out there on this one, but the comments I saw were intense. People are saying it's emotionally devastating, like one of the most emotionally heavy horror films of the year.
Huh. Interesting. It sounds like it goes beyond the typical horror tropes, like it's tapping into something deeper, more psychological, maybe.
Yeah, someone said it's like watching your childhood nightmares come to life, which is, I don't know, man. That's both terrifying and kind of poetic, right?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
It's like it speaks to how horror can like connect to our deepest fears, the things that haunt us even from when we were kids.
All right, now for a film that sparks some debate about whether it even belongs in the horror category, Love Lies Bleeding. Seems like more of a thriller, maybe with some romance mixed in, but apparently there's this one scene, this body horror scene, that totally freaked people out.
Well, genre lines are getting blurrier and blurrier these days, especially in indie cinema. Love Lies Bleeding sounds like it's playing with those expectations. It's not afraid to blend genres to create something new and unsettling.
And Dreadit seems to be digging that. They're always looking for something different, something that shakes things up.
They want to be surprised. They want to be challenged. They don't want the same old, same old.
Exactly. Speaking of which, let's talk about Abigail. Now, this one didn't rank super high, but it's got this cult following on Dreadit. People are loving its originality, its creepy atmosphere.
It's a classic case of a film that's probably too weird for mainstream audiences, but it found its people, you know, the ones who appreciate the strange and the unsettling, and Dreadit is full of those people.
It's like they have this radar for those hidden gems, the movies that would have just disappeared without them championing them.
Exactly. They're tastemakers, in a way. They find a light on the stuff that deserves to be seen.
Okay, next up is In a Violent Nature, and this one seems to have divided people, to say the least. The words brutal, uncompromising, and not for the faint of heart get thrown around a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like one of those films that doesn't hold back. It's not afraid to show the dark side of humanity, to really get into the nitty-gritty of violence.
I saw someone say it's the kind of movie that makes you want to take a shower afterwards. So yeah, not exactly a feel-good flick.
But, sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need a film to shake you up, to remind you that the world can be a dark and violent place.
Wait a minute, didn't we already talk about Mads?
Oh, you're absolutely right. My bad. But hey, maybe that's a testament to how much Mads stuck with us, right?
Yep.
That we accidentally brought it up twice.
Good point. Okay, moving on. Exuma. This one is a bit of a mystery. Not a ton of comments about it, but the ones that are out there are calling it one of the best films of the year, period.
One commenter even said that Exuma wipes the floor with every other movie on the list. Now, whether that's true or not, it's clear that this film made an impact.
It seems like one of those movies that you either love or hate. There's no in-between.
Which is kind of the beauty of horror, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so subjective. What terrifies one person might bore another to tears.
All right, next up we have Cuckoo. Some folks thought it was ranked way too low. They're calling it a wild, crazy, hilarious, and terrifying film.
It sounds like a real genre bender. Like if you took a Giallo film and injected it with a sense of humor.
Speaking of injecting something, how about Lisa Frankenstein? Apparently, it's a horror comedy with a teenage twist.
Horror comedy, always a fun combo. It's hard to pull off, but when it works, it really works.
And Dreadit seems to think Lisa Frankenstein nails it. They're praising its wit, its charm, and its surprisingly effective scares.
See, that's what I love about this list.
Yeah.
It's not just about blood and guts. It's about finding those unique voices, those filmmakers who are doing something different.
Right, like Dreadit is all about those genre mashups this year. It's not just straight up horror anymore. They want something more, something that surprises them.
They're looking for films that break the mold, that push the boundaries of what horror can be.
Okay, let's stick with this genre-bending theme.
Mhm.
Remember Love Lies Bleeding, the one with the crazy body horror scene?
Yeah.
Well, apparently that scene isn't even played for horror. It's like just there, part of the story.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How a scene that's so visceral can exist in a film that isn't necessarily trying to scare you. It's like body horrors becoming this language that filmmakers can use in all sorts of genres.
And what about It's What's Inside? I didn't see a ton of buzz about it, but the comments I saw were all really positive.
It sounds like one of those hidden gems. You know, a slow burn psychological thriller that gets under your skin and stays there.
Right, those are the best. Okay, Immaculate. This one seems to be another one of those love it or hate it deals.
Ah, those are always fun. What's got people so riled up?
Well, some people love the atmosphere and the ending, while others thought it was predictable and disappointing.
It's like a Rorschach test for horror fans.
Exactly. Okay, on to Blink Twice. Not a ton of info out there, but it's got me intrigued. There's a comment that says, it's the kind of movie that stays with you long after you've seen it.
Ooh, I like those. The ones that linger in your mind, you know.
Me too. All right, what's scarier than the unknown? Puppets. At least the puppets in stop motion.
Stop motion. Man, that animation style is just perfect for horror. There's something about those jerky movements, those blank eyes, that just creeps me out.
It's like watching a nightmare come to life.
Exactly. And stop motion seems to be using that style to its full potential, creating this world that's both beautiful and terrifying.
Okay, two more before we wrap up part 2. Mac XX Scene, the third film in the X franchise.
Oh yeah, XX scene. Heard good things about this one. Apparently it's a bit of a departure from the previous films.
Yeah, someone described it as Argento meets Grindhouse, which sounds pretty wild.
Argento meets Grindhouse. Now that's a combo I gotta see.
Right. All right, last but not least, Red Rooms, which a lot of folks felt was robbed of a higher ranking. A lot of users are calling it one of the most disturbing films of the year, but it's stuck all the way down at number 25.
Yeah, it just goes to show you how subjective these lists can be.
True. What one person finds terrifying, another might find boring. It's all about personal taste, especially in a genre like horror. Man, we've really gone through the gauntlet, haven't we? Demonic kids, killer clowns, puppets. 2024 was a wild year for horror.
It really was. And you know what's interesting to me is how diverse this list is. We've seen everything from like straight up slashers to these really heady, slow burn psychological thrillers to films that are just like defying categorization.
It's like Dreadit is, I don't know, growing up or something. Their tastes are changing.
Yeah. They're not just after cheap thrills anymore. They want movies that make them think, that stick with them long after the credits roll.
They want to be challenged, right? They want to feel something.
Exactly. And I think, honestly, I think that's a reflection of what's happening in horror overall. It's constantly evolving, finding new ways to scare us, to disturb us.
And Dreadit is like right there on the front lines, pushing the genre forward.
They're like, what's a good analogy? Like those canaries they used to use in coal mines, the ones that would signal if there was danger.
Okay, I like that. So Dreadit is the canary in the horror coal mine.
Yeah. They're sniffing out the most unsettling, the most disturbing, the most, well, terrifying films out there. And they're letting us know what's worth seeing.
So what's the big takeaway here? What can we learn from all of these blood-soaked pics?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the power of community.
Yeah.
Reddit is more than just a website. It's this gathering place for horror fans from all over the world to come together and share their passion for for all things spooky.
It's like a support group for people who love to be terrified.
Yeah, kind of. But it's also a place where you can debate your favorite films, you can discover new ones, you can argue about which monster is the scariest. It's a really vibrant community.
So if you're a horror fan, or even just like horror curious, do yourself a favor and check out Dreadit. You might be surprised by what you find.
You might discover your next favorite film. You might make some new friends. You might even learn a thing or two about the history and the future of horror.
And who knows, maybe you'll be inspired to make your own horror film.
And if you do, be sure to share it with Dreadit. They'll give you their honest opinion, no sugarcoating.
All right, well, that just about wraps up our deep dive into Dreadit's best horror films of 2024. Thanks for sticking with us through all the blood and guts and psychological torment. Until next time, sleep tight and don't let the bed bugs bite. Or the killer clowns, or the demonic children. Or the puppets.